What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Hairapist. I'm Kelsey, and I want to start off by saying I apologize. Last week's episode did not get put out. I have been extremely sick, fighting a cold. If you cannot tell, I am extremely nasally, a little bit more than normal because I'm already a nasally person. So hopefully, my voice today does not annoy your ears. But it's funny too because, with that being said, that kind of ties into today's episode, which will go in a little further detail of that, and you'll kind of see why. But I kind of want to start with saying, are you getting everything done? Are you answering the emails, showing up, answering the text messages? You're handling your responsibilities, right? But yet you're still left feeling empty. And it's not empty in a way of I'm not getting the things done because you know that you are. But if you know the feeling of being productive and still feeling empty, then you know exactly what I'm talking about because same. So today we're going to be talking about what that's like, what it's like to feel productive but still empty. So let's get into it.
I don't know why I'm telling you this. I've never told anyone this before. It's like you're my therapist.
No, I'm the therapist. Okay, so being productive but empty, that doesn't mean that it looks dramatic, right? So I feel like some people think of being productive but empty as a way of like being frantic. And it doesn't always come across that way. You're not falling apart, you're not necessarily missing work, you're not ignoring your responsibilities. You're getting everything done. You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You just don't feel anything while you're doing it. It's kind of like this numb feeling of like going with the motion and like a robotic feeling because you know that you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, but you don't feel anything while doing it. The text messages just keep rolling in and you're answering them, whether it's a couple minutes later on time, you're getting to them. You're handling the text messages, you're handling the emails, you're showing up on time for meetings or for, whatever you have planned or asked of you. You're handling all of the problems as they're coming your way. I mean, hell, you're even bringing your kid to freaking practice on time, which is a great thing because sometimes getting there 5 minutes before rather than 5 minutes late can be a struggle. And I'm very guilty of that. And at the end of the day, you're not proud of yourself. You're almost just drained. Like you have no energy to look back in the day and say, okay, I'm proud of myself. I got all this done. I got the things done that I was supposed to. You're more drained to even have the energy to be proud of yourself. And that's an even more draining feeling because you should out of anybody, you should be the one that's proud of yourself for doing the things, right? And sometimes whenever we feel empty, we might need to cry about it, but we're not doing that. We're not crying about it. We're not having breakdowns. It's like a flat feeling. Like there's no emotions behind it. Like mentally that you're doing all that you can do and you're doing all that you should be doing, but you're flat. The emotions that you're feeling with that are just bare minimum and flat. Nothing exciting, nothing sadness, no nothing. It's just simply as flat. And the things that normally excite you outside of your daily tasks now feel like tasks. It almost feels like there is nothing that you can find to relieve the stress of the normal tasks, right? It's not like you're overwhelmed. You're just almost like emotionally offline. Like you've just kind of checked out. And what the tricky part about that is from the outside, it may look like everything's fine and you have it all together. People may be like, how are you super mom or how do you do all the things that you do? But in reality, you're drained, you're tired and you really don't have the time to think about how you do all the things that you do because you don't have time for that. You don't have the time to sit back and be like, okay, where can I utilize help so I don't feel this flatness or this drained feeling. So nobody actually thinks to check on you, and then that leaves you not checking in on yourself. Have you ever heard the term high functioning burnout? So, what that means is not necessarily chaos. That doesn't necessarily look chaotic. That can look more controlled, right? And while I was putting together this episode, I had never heard of this person, but she's a social psychologist. And from what I understand, she's actually a burnout researcher, which I think is pretty interesting. But her name is Christina Maslach. I believe I'm saying her name right. If I'm saying it wrong, please correct me in the comments. But she had a quote that says, "Burnout is not a problem of the people. It is a problem of social environment in which the people work." So I think that can mean a little bit different to some people, but what I translate that as is burnout isn't always about weakness. Sometimes I feel like that's unsustainable expectations. And, sometimes I don't necessarily believe those expectations come from other people. I truly believe that a lot of times we may not even realize, but we have more expectations that we put on ourselves. We expect ourselves to handle everything, not drop the ball, to not need help, to stay strong, and to stay in our own lane. And in reality, that's not that's not sustainable. We can't put these high expectations on ourselves as a mom, as a friend, as a partner, as a business owner, as an employee, as a daughter, etc. All these things, we have expectations on ourselves because, for one, we think other people expect certain things from us, which they may, but who cares? What matters is the limitations of expectations that you put on yourselves, because when you expect so much from yourselves, what is that doing to you mentally and physically, emotionally? You're draining yourself. You're burning yourself out at the end of the day. And I feel like this tends to happen whenever our sense of worth is tied into being useful or productive or capable. You can't sit down and relax because you take tasks as a form of distractions to avoid stressful things. And therefore, that will lead to more stress and more anxiety, right? So, and I can admit, I am so guilty of this. And this kind of ties in back to with me being sick. um, if I have a day where I'm feeling a little burnt out, I'm the first to say, like, I need a day off, I need a break, I need a day to relax. But when that day comes to relax, I don't know how to relax because my self-worth is tied so into completing tasks and being productive that whenever I actually have a day to breathe and sleep in or just be lazy or just mentally gather my thoughts and just be, I find distractions such as cleaning the house, organizing the kids' room, going through my closet, doing things that I've been putting off with work because now I have the time. So I may have a day off of work at the salon or maybe with computer tasks, but I find other tasks and work to do to fill that time. And that's not really finding a day, that's not giving myself a day off. That's not giving myself a break. Because when we're used to being the one who's always handling things and the one who absorbs everything that goes on around us, it gets exhausting. It really does. But we have to figure out a way, and I'm saying this as into speaking to myself too, because I'm still guilty of this. We have to find a way to be okay without doing anything. Being productive while relaxing and having nothing to do is still being productive because that's productive to our mental state. And not having so many tasks to do is a way to give ourselves a break without overloading our minds and overloading our bodies, because sometimes nothing is a lot. It says a lot. And I know there's times where I can feel that burnout coming and I just keep pushing through. I feel the burnout and I'm like, you know what? If I add another client to my books, if I go straight from work to home to soccer practice, back home and do computer work. Like, it's okay because I'm gonna get the things that I need to do done, and I'm gonna stay busy the whole time. So I'm going to feel fulfilled. I'm going to feel better because I have gotten so many tasks done, and I'm dreading it. I'm not looking forward to doing it because I'm tired, but at the end of it, it's gonna be worth it. And sometimes it's not, because and sometimes it's not. I do that because I feel guilty for resting. I feel guilty for asking for help. And whenever I put that much stress on myself, it may not happen in the moment, but that will eventually start to trickle down into a trigger of a blow up or a meltdown or me getting sick, for instance. You know, our bodies are trying to tell us something, and I have gotten very good at saying, when I get sick, it sucks. It is never, never a convenient time to get sick. But I have gotten very good at thinking this way. Haven't always, and not always good at it. But when I do get sick, I tell myself, this is my body's way of telling me to rest. This is my body's way of telling me you need a break. Because in my head, I know that. Mentally, I know that. But will I actually take my advice or my listen to my brain and my thoughts and be like, okay, you're getting burnt out. You need to take a day to yourself, mental health day or just a relaxing day. No, it takes sometimes until my body gets sick to say, okay, you know what? It's okay if I have to reschedule a client because I'm sick. It's okay if my kid does not get to soccer practice because I am sick. It's okay to not answer text messages back on the weekend that I'm off because I am relaxing and I'm sick and I'm recuperating myself, my body, my mental, everything. That is okay. But sometimes it does take for me to get sick to get there. But I think the most important part out of this is that we need to figure out ways to do that before we get to that point. And what that ends up costing you in the long run, it may be subtle, but I do feel like it can cost you things in general. You know, people may stop checking on you because they're so used to you getting it done. They see you running around like crazy, but they're like, well, I mean, she's always like that. She always has so much going on. She's super mom, she's super woman. Like, she just, that's her life. Like, that's how she lives. She's always running the kids and working and doing this. So they've become accustomed to not checking on you and saying, hey, do you need help with this? Do you need me to bring your kid to practice? Do you need me to go pick this up or whatever? People will stop asking and stop checking on you because it becomes a normal daily thing for you, and people start to realize that. But even worse than people stop checking on you is you stop checking on yourself. So you're going through these daily routines of just waking up and it being boom 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 in your everyday tasks, but you kind of become to a point that you stop checking in on yourself because you're so comfortable with constantly having something going on that it becomes that there's no time to check in on yourself. And that's more detrimental than anything because if nobody's going to check in on you, you have to do a check in on you. If you're not checking in on yourself, then you're going to lose your joy. You're going to lose your happiness. You kind of become, again, like this robot and a shell in your own body. And I feel like that starts to really wither away at your spirit. And it doesn't happen immediately. I feel like over time, if you constantly stop checking in on yourself and you constantly start depleting yourself of energy and joy and happiness and um, just all those things, eventually you're going to be moving through life more efficiently and not intentionally. So you're kind of, yeah, you're getting the things done, but you're not doing it with intention. You're not having joy while living life. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people who get burnout is they lose the joy of life. So then you're looking at depression and sadness and anxiety and anger and resentment and all these things. And resentment, you'll start holding on to resentment towards the people around you the tasks that you're having to do. It could be resentment toward your home, toward your family, toward your friends, toward your job. All of that resentment will start building up because you're just exhausted. And I've thought about this before, and I want you to think about it too. If everything on your calendar, which I have the little e-calendar, and when I tell you I use that thing like crazy, my calendar is always so filled because I do like to stay organized and it helps the kids be able to see. If you don't know what the e-calendar is, it's like a little digital calendar that I can add stuff from my phone so the kids can see whenever they're at home. But if everything from your calendar was to disappear, would you feel relieved or would you panic? Because I feel like relief could mean your nervous system is begging, maybe begging for some space, and maybe you're overloaded, you know? Panic, as far as panic, I feel like that could mean that your tasks and the things that you have on your calendar, that's your whole identity. If your schedule disappears, do you know who you are without it? Because when productivity becomes more so like an overloaded feeling or your identity, slowing down feels like failing or like you're disappearing. But either way, awareness is powerful because burnout doesn't just happen from doing too much. It happens from never questioning why you're doing things in the first place. And that doesn't mean go and quit your job or cancel all life and all life plans. That's not what I'm saying. Because being capable does not mean to be limitless. And that doesn't mean that you need to wait to crash, or in my case, to be sick in order to slow down. Slow down in the middle. When you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, start to slow down, bring it back a notch, realize and evaluate your surroundings, your life, your tasks, and say, okay, this is a lot for me right now. There's too many tasks on my plate. How can I eliminate some of these tasks or delegate it somewhere else or to somebody else? Because it's okay to ask for help, but how can I slow down in a way where I'm still productive, but I'm not burning myself out? And I know this is going to sound very hypocritical of me to say, but it's okay for things to be imperfect. I'm a perfectionist through and through, and I think when it comes to my career as a hairstylist, it is a great trait to have. But I will say, as a person, it can bite me in the ass sometimes because I tend to want things to be perfect all the time in every aspect, and I want things to go according to plan. And I do get frustrated whenever things are imperfect, but and I'm talking to myself when I say this, to be honest, but we need to learn that it's okay for things to not be perfect. For something to be imperfect, it is okay. It is also okay to ask for help, which again, I don't like to do either, but I'm trying and I'm trying to do better. In the previous episodes, we've kind of touched on that before about asking for help, and that's okay. It's okay to do. We're human. We can't do everything. And you are going to get burnt out if you're trying to be a superhuman or a super mom or a super person in general. Like you can ask for help. You cannot do it all. And if you think that you can do it all, there's probably been a time or two where you've felt a little overwhelmed or burnt out. And it's because it's okay. It's okay if you can't. If you have plans and you're just feeling burnt out and you're tired and you don't want to go out to dinner with somebody that you've scheduled the plans for, it's okay to cancel. You do not need to send a 5-page paragraph about why you're canceling explanations. Life gets busy, people get busy. And if you're feeling burnt out and you just do not have the time on your schedule, it is okay to cancel. And you do not have to sit there and apologize and overly explain the reasons why. It should be enough for you, the other person, to have that understanding. If you need to cancel plans, you do not need to send a huge explanation why. And most importantly, you do not need to earn rest. You do not need to earn rest within yourself. You do not need to have a tally mark of, well, I've done this, this, and this off my task board, so therefore I can sit down for an hour and watch TV. No, you do not need to earn rest by breaking down. You do not need to wait to the point of breaking down in order to gain that rest. Give yourself the rest. Allow yourself to rest. You need it. And again, I'm saying this and I'm speaking to myself when I say it too, because I've definitely had to learn the hard way. And honestly, I still struggle with this sometimes because there are seasons when I wake up and there's more seasons in life than there are seasons in a year. But I'm just going to say, as a mom, as a business owner, trying to keep the house together, trying to take care of everyone around us, just doing all the things. And then I sit down and I realize I never actually stopped. When I sit down and I'm thinking back, okay, did I eat today? Did I actually sit down today in between clients from going from point A to point B to point C to continuously? I've never actually stopped. And when I go to lay my head down on my pillow, my brain is still like going, going, going because I've never actually given it a break to calm down for a minute and just breathe and just relax. And and I mean to be honest, I was getting everything done, but I just wasn't in it. But you know what? There's going to be times that we might not have the resources or the capability to say ask for help, but those are the moments that we need to sit down and evaluate. Okay, in order to do this, and I guess my brain works as if looking at everything as a job in a sense, or trying to organize life. And there may be times where we actually don't have the time or the capability or the resources to ask for help or to slow down. And I get that. I know not everybody has the capability to adjust their schedule, but there has to be some room for adjustment in your schedule, in your daily tasks, because if not, you are going to get burnt out. You are going to feel either one, like crap, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever, or you're going to feel nothing and you're just going to continuously going and going in life. And before you know it, it's going to be a week or a couple months or a year or a couple years have passed by, and life doesn't feel satisfying anymore because you're just kind of going through the motions of the daily tasks and the everyday things that life throws at you. And I don't want for you or anybody to find yourself down the road looking back and like, oh my gosh, like I'm burnt out. Now I'm miserable. Now I want to quit my job. Now I want to go run away from home. Now I want to scream at the top of the mountain because I'm ready to pull my hair out because I am so overwhelmed. I don't want that for anybody. So we just need to take a step back when we are feeling overwhelmed and say, okay, what task can I eliminate or put off right now? Let's put it in categories: important, somewhat important, not important. The important things we'll keep on so we can get it done. If it's somewhat important, can it wait? Can we put this off for a little while until our schedules open up, until we have that mental capacity to where we can get these things done? The things that are not important, let's put that off to the side. And when we have the extra time, we'll come back to it because right now that's not important. And one of the things with my business partner that I've learned works for us, because two people running a business and having separate tasks is great because we each have our own things to delegate our time to. But something that has worked for us is if there are things going on, whether it's new tasks, whether it's existing things, I will tell her, I don't have the mental capacity for that right now. Like, it's not that I'm not interested, and it's not that it doesn't matter to me, but right now, I don't have the mental capacity. So that lets her know that I have a lot on my plate. I am interested and I do have the passion with you, but right now, it's not something that I can put as a top priority for me. So if she has the room for that as a top priority, we have this understanding that's something I feel comfortable and I trust you to take this on, but right now it's not something that I can add to my plate. And that works for us because that communication helps each other know, like, hey, we have different schedules and we have different lives, and that's great. But some things you can handle that more than I can, and vice versa. There are some things that are important to me that I want to get done, but she may not have the mental capacity for that in her life to add to her plate. So by her letting me know I don't have the mental capacity for that right now, that allows me to know, okay, is this something that I'm willing to take on by myself? Can I wait for her to have some mental space for it? Or do we need to have a conversation on how we can fit this in? What do we need to go how do we need to go from here? And that honestly in a business relationship has helped us tremendously. And I think that's something great that you can put in business practice or in personal practice. But to sum this whole episode up with this high functioning burnout, is you do not have to crash before you give yourself a pause, because you deserve a pause before the crash. You do not have to fall apart to admit that you're tired. It does not make you weak to admit that you're tired or to admit that you need a break. And productive should not mean leaving you feeling depleted and empty and blah and just flat. Productivity should not feel like that, because strength was never meant to cost you yourself. So, if this conversation resonated with you in any way, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes. And if someone came to mind while listening to this episode, send it their way. We'd love to have them. But I'm Kelsey, your hairstylist, unlicensed therapist, the Hairapist. I'll see you at our next appointment. Bye.
When the sun goes down